Hi, everyone. We've got Pete from the Genwell project. I'll let Pete introduce himself and tell a little bit about what he's doing. Uh, Here we go.
Hey everyone, Veronique, thank you so much for the opportunity to share the message of the work we do at Genwell and how it relates to people that are living with a traumatic brain injury. Um, we are Genwell, and we're a Canadian-led global human connection movement, and our mission is to make the world a happier and healthier place by educating, empowering, and catalyzing people around the world about the importance of face-to-face social connection as a proactive, positive, and inclusive action that we can all take to build happier and healthier lives, but also a happier and healthier society in which we can all live and thrive. We do this with programming that we do in sharing the information about the power of human connection. And we also have 7 campaigns that we run throughout the course of the year that are really catalytic occasions that give each of us a reminder, an excuse, and permission to reach out and build the healthier social connection habits that make us all happier and healthier. So I'll stop there and I'll let Veronique let me know where she would like to go next.
So we've already touched base, I guess, on how brain injury can be sort of really isolating for people who have a brain injury. So I guess for me, one of the big question is there a link between connection and mental and emotional health?
Well, there's no question there is a connection between being socially connected or, frankly, being disconnected from other people that can lead to increased mental and physical health. So, when we feel disconnected from other people, not only does it result in increased risk of anxiety and depression, but it can increase your risk of early onset dementia and suicide and other things, but it also impacts heart disease, diabetes, addiction, obesity. So when we feel chronically or persistently lonely or disconnected from other people, it can absolutely impact both the mental and physical well-being of humans.
I guess one of the question is obviously, as a friend or a loved one, are there signs that people could be on the lookout for to sort of gauge whether the person that's recovering from a brain injury, if there's signs that, they're not connecting enough, that they're lacking connection essentially.
Yeah, I think it's a really great question, Veronique, whether there are signs of, people's loneliness. Of course, if you know somebody really well, you probably will see changes in their habits. They don't want to go out as much. Maybe they don't want to play sports as much. Maybe they don't want to come to the local event or the community gathering or whatever. But my fear is that we all wait until we see signs. And I think the whole message of our movement is to say to people, don't wait for the sign. If
Mm.
you know that social connection is important for the health and well being of people, then who is it in your life that you know may have been going through a struggle? And it could be a traumatic brain injury, it could be a loss, it could be a job loss, it could be financial pressure, kid problems, it could be relationship issues. And what we really need to understand is that we can all feel socially isolated, disconnected, and lonely for lots of reasons in life. And most of us will experience it at one or many more times in life, maybe even the loss of a loved one. And so rather than waiting until we see signs, let's proactively look at the opportunities we all have to be part of the solution by reaching out to somebody who has had a brain injury, who has, probably experienced some type of change into their social habits and routines that they might have had before they had the brain injury, and recognize, because we're more conscious of it, that, hey, I could show up for that person. Maybe we could go for a walk, we can go for coffee, for lunch, whatever the solution might be. But don't wait until you see it in a crisis lens of that person is really sick or lonely. And now we're all on high alert. Let's do it proactively to keep people happier and healthier.
That's actually a really good message. Yeah. Thanks for sharing. In the context of brain injury recovery, there's often, an array of challenges that people recovering face, from fatigue, sensory overload. Some might have, a speech impairment. And that's makes partaking in social events or even situation a little bit harder. So I guess from your experience and what you know of connection, have you got like ideas of things that people could do to try to mitigate those challenges and making sure that they're not putting connection on the back seat because of an array of symptoms that they may be experiencing?
Yeah, I'll say a few things, Veronique. So first off, I don't always want to put the burden on the individual who's struggling. So first off, let's awaken everybody to the role that we can play in each other's lives. So let's put that one aside. But when we think about what the individual can do to become a little more social, I think it's two things for me. Number one is recognizing all the ways in which we can be social. So, recognizing that we can talk to strangers, that we can say hello to our neighbors, that we can use family and friends as a connection point. And it could be old colleagues or maybe classmates. Every one of those interactions can be part of our social life. And so oftentimes we've told people in society not to talk to strangers for 50 years, and yet talking to strangers increases optimism, trust, sense of belonging, connection, community, inclusion. And so we oftentimes ignore some of the opportunities that exist all around us each and every day. And then the second point that I'll make, which I think becomes an even greater point on the other side of the global pandemic, but also with a brain injury, is that if we don't leave our homes, it becomes a challenge. Obviously, digital connection is a wonderful supplement to the human interactions that make us happier and healthier. But we can't only lean on digital interactions. We need to see people face to face. 80 to 90% of communication is nonverbal. We don't get many of those nonverbal cues when we're communicating through a digital platform. So, what we really want to encourage people to do is say, whether it's about inviting people in if your mobility is lacking, but if you are able to get outside, it's really about being conscious and intentional that if you understand how important social connection is to your health and well being, that you're making that effort to get outside and give yourself the opportunity to create those social interactions with strangers and neighbors and people at the coffee shop and the barista and whoever else it might be. Because if we don't give ourselves that opportunity, it really limits the opportunity to feel socially connected.
That brings me to another question, actually. How important is connection in terms of self-confidence and confidence building?
Well, it's very important because, when we get out of the habit, which happened during the global pandemic, I think we can all feel how less confident we are in striking up conversations with people, because we spent 2 years not talking to people face to face. And you see it from young people to old people to people living with brain injuries, lots of reasons why people didn't feel that confidence. And I'll use the example of talking to strangers. I think talking to strangers is a really beautiful entry point for people who may not naturally feel comfortable or confident talking to other people. When we see a stranger on the street, we can say hello and we can keep going, or they can keep walking by. There's no risk. They don't know you. If there's fear of judgment, they don't they don't know anything about you and you may never see them again. And so for me, the opportunity to talk to a stranger may be a great way for us to recognize that not everybody's judging us, that most people, I love the line, which is you'll never know how little people think of you until you realize how little that they think of you. Because when we understand that, most people are actually good by nature, that we're kind and we want to help other people. And if we can just get ourselves outside and we can create those little interactions, as I say, with neighbors or strangers or the barista or anywhere we go, I think we recognize that the opportunities to stay connected are all around us, and that by practicing these little interactions, we start to build the confidence that says, oh, I can do this. I can talk to anybody because I know that if I've talked to 100 strangers, and the research shows it's almost 100% of the time when we do talk to strangers that both parties are happy that it happened, is that when we gain that confidence through regular practice, we start to believe that we can talk to anybody, and that's a really powerful place.
Are there key elements that make connections better than another? Are there things that people should be looking into or learning about to maximize, I guess, the quality of their connection as well in interactions?
Well, I think the research shows there's three key elements to building deep, meaningful connection. Number one is time. Number two is frequency, because we can spend a long time together, but if we don't do that more than one time, we haven't really built a deep, meaningful relationship. I think of universities and colleges. We spent a lot of time together. We had frequency. We went to classes. We saw each other, at the restaurant, on campus, wherever you saw each other, and you had time. And the third one is a shared experience, which is when we've been through something together, and that could be a good thing or it could be a bad thing. And so when we have those shared experiences with other people over a period of time with frequency, that those combinations really help us build the deep, meaningful connections that last a lifetime. And the example I'll use is, high school and university and the workplace, which is those are three areas in our lives where we spend lots of time repeatedly, whether it's classes, whether it's sports teams, all the things that we do while we're at school, or when we go to a job, and when we see people every day, or at least we used to see people every day. That gave us an opportunity to create those three things of repetition, time together, and shared experiences. It really entrenched deep, meaningful relationships. But overall, I think the real message, Veronique, in this is that if we want to build relationships, deep, meaningful relationships with people, we have to invest the time to make it happen. Because too often, we will make the time for a period of time, and then we get distracted or busy, or we may go through a challenging time, and it takes two people to make it work. And so, I think that's the advice I would give people, is understanding what it takes, but most importantly, that we have to invest the time to make it happen.
Sometimes community can be disabling in themselves. So, as a brain injury survivor, how can you advocate to make your community less disabling and empower us to, ask for change?
I think the answer to that for me, Veronique, is we just need to talk about the power of human connection more often. I don't think, we were talking briefly just before we came on to do the conversation, and we've told people for 50 years to eat better, to exercise, sleep, drink 8 glasses of water, don't drink too much, and don't smoke. But I think society is walking around not understanding not only the impact that social connection can have on me, but the impact that I can have on you or anybody, whether it's a brain injury survivor or whether it's somebody who is thriving, living the greatest life. And the reality is, I think the pandemic woke us up to the reality that we all need human connection in our life. Whether we're suffering, whether we're struggling, or whether we're thriving, what helps us get through, which helps us cope, what helps us find solutions, and what helps us build resilience is having people around us who make us feel seen, valued, and heard, so that we never feel alone, no matter what it is that we're dealing with. Whether it's, as I said earlier, it could be a financial, job loss, financial pressure, death of a loved one, a brain injury, whatever it is, we need to help each other recognize that we need each other more than ever before as a society, especially when we go through additional challenges in our lives.
we've briefly touched base on, I guess, social media and technology, and I guess it has had an impact on the type of connection that we've had with one another. Taking into account that sometimes brain injury, people deal with additional challenges. It's sort of become easy to rely on technologies to connect with others. So although I'm sure it has really positive impact, are there things and pitfalls and things that we need to be aware of and on the lookout to make sure that the face-to-face connection doesn't take too much of a backseat on the account of technology?
Yeah, I still remember you presenting this at our conference 2 years ago as we come up to the third Canadian Human Connection Conference. And digital technology is an incredible tool. Whether you're living with a brain injury or whether you're just unable to get out and see people, loved ones on the other side of the world, like you and I are chatting right now from New Zealand and Toronto, Canada. How beautiful is it that we're able to have this conversation? And so I think I touched on it a little bit earlier. Digital technology, whether it's Zoom platforms or social media, can be a really beautiful supplement to the human interactions that we need. But we need to understand what things add value to our life, like having a real conversation with somebody, and what things take value and time out of our lives from doing the things that make us happier and healthier. So, if we use any of the platforms to do this, connect with people, make plans to arrange a time and a date and a location, well, that's a beautiful use of technology. When we find ourselves scrolling through, social feeds and watching everybody else live what in most cases isn't the reality of their lives, it's the human highlight reel. Well, that probably is not going to be a positive experience for us in the long run. And I think even when we talk about digital connection, like a Zoom chat or a Skype or whatever platform you might use, there was a study that came out of Montreal just near the end of the global pandemic that said when we connect face to face, it has 9 times the brain activity of a digital connection like we're doing here. And so digital technology is a wonderful supplement. And thank goodness we had it during the global pandemic, because if we weren't even able to connect like this, I'm not sure how well we as a society would have fared not having other means to communicate with loved ones. But I think as we come out of the global pandemic, it's more important than ever before, as I said earlier, that we don't lean on technology as our only means to communicate with other people. It is intended to be a supplement. We need human interaction. We need that brain activity. We need hugs. We need to know that people care about us, they see us, and that we high five and we fist pump and we do whatever we do to let people know that we care and that they have somebody who is there for them. And so I think technology is a beautiful thing. It's a great supplement, but none of us, whether we have a brain injury or not, can survive on digital technology alone.
Any last words that you'd like to share with us in terms of, the benefits of connections, whether it's stats from research that's taken place or a personal message that you'd want to share?
Yeah, I'd say, again, I think we're all awakening to just how important social connection is for our health and happiness, whether it's the Dr. Robert Waldinger study out of Harvard. That's the 85-year-old study that says that the single greatest contributor to happiness in our lives are the social connections and the relationships we have. The study that says it's social connection is now the single greatest preventative action to avoid depression. So whether you see it through a positive lens or you see it through a deficiency and a negative lens, the reality is, I believe the world is awakening that social connection is the most fundamental human need that we all have. And the only way that we're going to solve this for everybody is everybody recognizing that we are all susceptible to it, but that we are all also all part of the solution to the problem of the disconnected world. So I'm grateful for the opportunity to have this conversation, Veronique. And most importantly, I hope everybody will check out Gen Well. You know, we're a Canadian-led global human connection movement that's working to educate, empower, and catalyze Canadians and people around the world. Because when we understand it, when we're given ways in which we can do it ourselves, and we're given occasions that can help us make it happen, then I think that is the solution over time that will get us to build the healthier connection habits that make us all happier and healthier.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and the knowledge and your passion really with us. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Veronique.
Awesome.